Well, welcome everyone to the online program for the Sunshine Coast Health Center. And we've been talking in this series about impulsiveness. Again, not all addicts are impulsive, but there are a great number who tend to act on a whim or a hunch or the brilliant last minute idea, as I actually call it. And we're making the argument that this isn't because the brain has been hijacked by the drugs and bypassed, this part of the brain, the thinking part of the brain. We're not making that argument. We're looking at some of the psychology involved in being impulsive based on some of the ideas of David Shapiro. And Shapiro says that you can't really understand impulsiveness if you just blame it on this part of the brain is screwed up because of drugs or alcohol or whatever. You have to understand it in terms of how an impulsive person makes sense of the world, and that they do not see it as some continuous thing with a logic and there's a plan or anything like that. It's just a series of haphazard things that just sort of pop up. Some of them are opportunities, some of them will be frustrations, some of them will be sensuous experiences, but just sort of a chaotic collection of things, not any sort of deep thing. So they don't take any sort of active, deliberate reflection on their life because that would not make sense to them. Everything just becomes, oh, there's an opportunity, let's go for it. Not a deep idea of, well, let's work through all the details, what could go wrong, what could go right, is this a good idea, how does this fit in the bigger picture of my life? They don't think about stuff like that because that's not how they make sense of the world. Now you got to think about this, okay? If there's no sort of deep, active, deliberate reflection on their life, then really there's no real point in approaching life like that, right? And so what Shapiro says is that these people become passive. In other words, they're sort of like pinballs, right? Something will happen in life and bang, they'll react to it, right? Because that's the way they just operate. And if that's your life, if that's your style of living, then really you're not taking charge of your life. And you know that one of the key pieces at the Sunshine Coast Health Center for your recovery is this whole concept of being in control of your life. Or as the 12-step program might phrase it, to thine own self be true. That you have to take this active, deliberate effort to reflect upon what you want out of life, to recognize you have a past and there's this present, and then the story doesn't end at the present because there's still all this stuff to fulfill in the future. And to think about that, and how does what I'm going to do integrate into that? How can I make sense of it within this bigger picture of my life? But if you're living a passive life, if you are just reacting to things, if you may have a thought but you're not really probing and it's not a deep thought and you're not reflecting on it deeply, then really how can you possibly be in control of your life? And if this is one of the keys to recovery, then it would be helpful for the impulsive kind of person to take some time, step back, take a deep breath, and actually start looking at what's going on in their life, what they want in the future. Because life isn't just a series of random opportunities and frustrations and sensuous experiences. It is the person to make sense of what they're doing in their lives and what they want out of the future and what they have to do to achieve what they want. So it's much more like of a story of some sort of logic in life. And we know this in recovery, which is why, of course, the 12-step program is so helpful, is because it helps its members develop this framework for living. At any rate, just thought we'd spend this series on this style of living called impulsiveness, and just to give you a little deeper understanding that this is one of the things that really has to be overcome for good recovery, because you have to start making sense of the world in a new way and making sense of life in a new way. And when you get an idea, to reflect on it and to think deeply about it and what does that mean for you in the future, so that when you're faced with a craving or a bunch of buddies saying, come on Harry, let's go to the bar, to not just jump into it as a whim or a hunch or a half-thought idea, to actually think about it and reflect on it, and how does this behavior, how will this decision fit in what I want to do in my life and where I want to go in my life. Anyway, that's September's online program, so we'll be back next month with another idea.